Okay, it's red and yellow time around here. Urban Phenom, B-double-E, Cash Simmons.
You know who
We
it is.
for the tail right here. Come on,
I hold it down for the city that I'm at. That's Kansas City, boy, in the middle of the map, yeah. And I'm KC stunting. Welcome to the town, homie. You don't want nothing, no. And if you cut me, I would probably bleed.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, addicts, depending on what time you are watching or listening to this podcast. This is AA Radio, the official podcast of ArrowheadAddict.com, the only source that you really need for any kind of Kansas City Chiefs news. I am Jason Seibel, your host, as always with you, bringing you everything Chiefs, all the time, red and yellow. That's what we do here. With me, as always, is my number two, my PIC partner in crime up in the great inland Northwest. My good friend, Mr. Chris Kilduff. What's up, Chris?
Hey, what's going on?
It's another week of Chiefs football. Unfortunately, you and I were both right last week. We suffered a loss at the hands of the Denver Broncos, but we'll get into that and much more here in just a minute. But definitely glad, Chris, to have you along as always. We were supposed to have Andrew and Kenny with us tonight as well, but to no avail. I don't know. They were kidnapped by aliens. I don't know what's going on. But
Kenny's internet connectivity again.
Those bastards, they killed Kenny again. So, yeah, Kenny's not here, which is too bad because I was looking forward to arguing with him. But, yeah, he's not here, and so we're just going to talk about him behind his back, and he can listen to it on the podcast on AA Radio with everybody else. And we can't say too much bad stuff about Andrew because he's the boss, so we we try not to dog him.
He'll edit it all out before he gets posted.
Exactly. Yeah, he'll take it all out. So
although he's not here to eat his crow for predicting the Chiefs win.
Oh yeah, he was all about it. Well, he's got to do that, I mean, he has to.
It's in the job title.
It's in the job title. He's got to be I'm the Kool-Aid drinker, but he's the Kool-Aid man. So what a game it was. Sunday Night Football on the big stage, national attention, national media, more so than all season long, prime time. Chris Collinsworth and Al Michaels calling the game. And the Chiefs just couldn't quite get it done. Final score 27-17. Denver Broncos ended up pulling it out. And what I thought was a very winnable game for the Chiefs, Chris.
Yeah, I predicted last week that we were going to lose. I think I ended up saying like 30-13, and it was a pretty close spread there for a while. When we went down 0-10 in the first quarter, I started to thinking to myself, well, this is kind of going where I thought it was going to go. I was like, they kind of jumped ahead. We were dropping passes early in that game, and I thought that they were going to kind of take charge. And luckily, as always this season, even when the Chiefs aren't playing good football, they're playing football with heart. And unlike past Chiefs teams, it seems like they didn't give up and were able to kind of struggle back into it and actually ended up playing some pretty good football, I thought.
Yeah, they definitely had their moments, both offensively and defensively. I thought that there were, there were parts to take away. I wrote a piece first part of this week on ArrowheadAddict.com. Basically, one of the things that frustrated me in the aftermath of this game was the finger pointing, which is inevitably going to happen whenever there's a loss like that, especially when you win 9 in a row and then you drop one. And a lot of those fingers were pointed at Alex Smith in specifically and the offense in general, which I don't necessarily think is unfair. But one of the things that I think is that because this Chiefs team, who was so horrible last year, so mediocre the year before that, pretty good the year before that, but then other several years of mediocrity before that, the fact that they come out, they win 9 in a row, I think it raised Chiefs fans' expectations almost too high. And you and I, Chris, were kind of talking about this before we kicked the show off. The Chiefs are not supposed to be 9-0. The Chiefs should probably not even be a 500 team at this point in the season, or maybe just 500, with a new head coach, a new system, a new quarterback, and so with every win, the expectation and the bar gets raised a little bit higher and a little bit higher, and I think that is a lot of the backlash with the first loss and only loss.
Yeah, I was saying to you before we started recording, is I feel that way. I mean, I don't think as a Chiefs fan or a football fan in general, you can, set expectations on a team, at all. They is in our shoes. So, coming in and by the time we won our first 4 games, I really don't think you could really set any expectations on us. I think we were posed to do better and we had some stuff in place, but, no one thought that we were going 9-0. No, I don't think anyone really thought going into this game that, the Chiefs had a prominent chance of winning it. I really don't think that was the thing. So, I think that building on that and showing, in the fight that we fought, I think it's showing that we have the ability to win those games. And like when we talk about fighting Denver next time, that it's going to actually turn out a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, and I think you hit the nail right on the head. Denver was supposed to win this game. Denver is a team that is built, was built to win this game, and that's okay. I mean, there are only 3 teams in the whole league who have only lost 1 game this season, and the Chiefs are one of those 3. It's the Chiefs, the Broncos, and the Seahawks. That's pretty good company to be keeping, even though the Chiefs are no longer the only undefeated team. The run ends at 9 again, just like it did in 2003. The fact that there are only 3 teams in the league that are a one-loss team, I mean, that's, like I said, that's pretty good company that the Chiefs are keeping. So looking at the stats of the game, and you mentioned, Chris, that they did do some things right, and I'm fully willing to agree. Alex Smith, 21 for 45, 230 yards, 2 touchdowns. Statistically speaking, not necessarily his best game. I think that his best game this year was against the New York Giants earlier this season. However, he didn't look bad when he was on and when his receivers were holding on to the ball. A lot of drops in this game.
Yeah, I kind of watched that too, and it's kind of some of those cringe moments where, you finally see Alex Smith drop back and shoot the ball down the field, and then you have a receiver, drop the ball. But, as bad as Denver's defense has looked in the past, so some of their corners were looking pretty good Sunday too. They were kind of playing tight and playing physical, and causing, I think, the receivers to get a little alligator arms and not reach out for that ball. So I mean, you hope that doesn't happen. You hope that they can get on the page a little bit more, but those definitely hurt us. And then the turnovers, like I said, we've been so good about turnovers in the past, but when we got that fumble in the first quarter and turned around and fumbled it right back to him, it was pretty devastating. I think me and you were saying a little bit earlier that it ended up causing a 14-point turnaround early, in the first half.
Yeah, I mean, at least a 10-point turnaround for sure. Which is what the Chiefs ended up losing by. The Chiefs recover a fumble in pretty much in their red zone. Hit Anthony Sherman, the fullback, who has been a very sure-handed receiver all season. The catches that he's made out of the backfield, you just don't expect. But if you go back and look at that hit, I mean, that hit was exactly what coaches tell you to do. Put your face mask right on the football, right on the ball carrying arm of the ball carrier, and that's exactly what happened. And the ball pops out. So, turnovers are going to happen. You statistically speaking, you play enough games and enough snaps, it's going to happen. But it was so disheartening that it happened right there after the Chiefs just got the big momentum swing. Derek Johnson, recovers his second fumble of the season. And they're there, and you're thinking, okay, here we go. And then next thing you're thinking, I'm thinking anyway, Chiefs are going to go up. It's the first quarter, and the Chiefs are going to have the lead. I mean, we're in the red zone. And next thing you know, Peyton Manning does what Peyton Manning does, and bada bing, bada boom, they're in the red zone, and then, it's a touchdown. So, yeah, that one hurt, and I think that took the wind out of the Chiefs' sails kind of early on. They did recover, but I want to go back to a point you just made about their cornerbacks, the Denver Bronco cornerbacks. I think that the Denver defense played really well this game. I don't necessarily think it was as much the Chiefs' offense that was playing poorly. That they had their ups and downs, but I think that Denver's defense, and I'm going to hand it to Kenny, even though he's not here, and to gloat, but I think that their defense wasn't maybe as bad as you and I said it was going to be.
Yeah, as I watched it, I was kind of impressed. I thought they were playing, really tough on the receivers, very physical. Dwayne Bowe is a pretty hard guy to body up, and Fasano is a pretty big guy to body up, and they were able to match up pretty well and be physical with those guys, and cause a lot of drops on our end. And I mean, we dropped a few on our own, but I got to hand it to them too. Like I said, I didn't think that they've been able to really hang with too many teams at all, and they did a pretty good job with us.
Yeah, they did for sure. And like I said, Alex Smith, 21 for 45, 230 yards, 2 touchdowns. Now here's the interesting thing. Smith actually threw more touchdowns in this game than Peyton Manning. A lot of people kind of overlooked that fact that 2 of the 3 touchdowns that the Denver Broncos scored were on the ground. Peyton Manning only threw 1 touchdown, that very first one to his tight end, Julius Thomas. So, in that respect, and if you look at Peyton Manning's numbers, other than the fact that he had almost 100 more yards in receiving, which is a big part attributed to the long yards after catch run that Demaryius Thomas had, but Peyton was only 24 for 40 and 323 with 1 touchdown. So as far as completion-wise, that's the lowest Peyton Manning has completed all season long, which I think can be attributed to the defense that was being played. Looking down some of the more of the stats in regards to the Chiefs, Jamaal Charles, definitely not the breakout game that a lot of us were hoping for. 16 touches on the ground for 78 yards, 35, almost half of that coming on the one big break that he had, where I think had he taken a bit of a different angle on that run, that big 35-yarder, he probably could have scored on that.
Yeah, I thought he was going in. When he first broke it, just kind of watching down the field and then watching the replays, I was kind of bewildered that didn't go all the way. Just kind of a bad angle by him. And then the killer, really, too, that seemed to be missing in our game was throwing to Jamaal Charles. He didn't really get anything going receiving, which is very unlike him. He had 2 receptions for, -6 yards.
Yeah,
so, I mean, trying to do some of those screens that we've always, done with him seemed to not really be working in our favor, and they sniffed those out on us. So, generally, you're looking at least another 70 yards out of him receiving. So it was kind of surprising not to have some of that there.
Yeah, it was, and I think some of that is attributed to the Denver defense. I think that they did their homework, and I think that they sniffed those out, pretty well. One of the other things I found encouraging, again, in that article that I wrote earlier this week about spreading the blame, the first line I said, I don't do moral victories. I had enough of that crap when Todd Haley was here. And I mean that from the very, very bottom of my soul. I don't like, you could find a silver lining in anything, and that's okay, but to call something a victory when it was the loss, I don't buy into that. So what I'll say is, things that I found encouraging is, the fact that Smith was taking some shots down the field, whether it was by design from the play calling from Andy Reid or, he just was feeling it. He was letting it fly. He actually threw more passes over, 10, 15, 20 yards this game than he has all season.
Oh, yeah.
If you look down the receiving stats of each of the receivers, Bowe had a 26-yarder, McCluster had an 18-yarder, McGrath had a 21-yarder, Fasano 12, Avery had a 20-yarder. So I mean, those are some nice chunk plays that the Chiefs were able to muster up, and Smith was able to get the ball down the field.
Yeah, well, another thing that, and I've kind of said this a little bit before, is where I think a little bit of that comes from is Alex Smith's recognition of being down by, multiple points. A lot of our games have been kind of these low-scoring affairs where, we're kind of keeping it close and then pull it out, and I think that allows Alex Smith to play his kind of slower-paced, chess game of making sure we're not turning the ball over, making sure we're doing these kind of long, time-consuming drives and doing the short passes that he likes to do and high percentage passes. And when you're down by chunks and you're playing a team that you know is going to get right back on the field and toss the long ball to score again on you, I think it a lot makes him, it forces him to jump out of his comfort zone a little bit and throw some of that longer stuff, which I would more than welcome on more than just that game.
Yeah, I mean, I think that regardless of your thoughts on Smith, whether you're pro-Smith, anti-Smith, or just still kind of on the fence, or think, he's good enough for now, the way that the NFL is now in the the modern age NFL, you can't operate an offense under the premise that we're going to run 5-yard pass, 6-yard pass, 4-yard pass. You're going to have to take some shots and connect on those shots in order to keep that defense honest, because I think a lot of what was going on is this defense said, well, we know that Smith isn't going to go deep down the field, so we're going to stack 8 in the box. We're going to stop Charles, and they did for the most part. And then, Smith takes some shots and things open up a little bit. So, yeah, I mean, I would definitely like to see some more of that, to not only open up that offense a little bit more, but to start putting some more points on the board, because 17 points isn't going to cut it. When Denver comes to Arrowhead in 2 weeks, I just don't think that 17 points is going to cut it. I think that they've got to put more points on the board. They got to find a way to score more points.
Yeah, and it goes back to what I was saying last week. I made it a point to say, Andrew had touched on that, if we kind of implement that Colts game plan where, we do this and do that, and hey, we could keep Peyton Manning, scoring 21 points, 24 points, and do that. I made a point saying that's fine and dandy, we can do that, but that means we have to score more than 24 points to win the game. And so it comes down to the Chiefs have to find a way to put points on the board, and it seems like hopefully they're being able to do that a little bit more and more.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Regardless of how many points that you hold Peyton Manning in this high-powered offense too, which, as another by and by, to the side, this is the lowest point total that the Broncos have scored all season, the 27 that they scored against the Chiefs. So another.
Well, if you look at Manning's numbers, like if you just solo out Manning, I mean, he had some yardage, but if you take one touchdown is way less than where he's going everywhere else. Everywhere else, he's throwing 4 or 5 touchdowns.
Exactly. No, I mean, and so there was some good stuff out of this game. Like I said, I'm going to be very careful not to call it a moral victory, but there was some good stuff where, and that goes back to what I said at the very top of the show, is it was winnable. It was very winnable. The Chiefs' defense holds the Broncos offense to a 3-and-out 3 consecutive times to start the third quarter. If the Chiefs could have scored on one of those possessions where they got the ball back, but nope, they turned around and were forced on a 3-and-out the very next possession. So, it was almost reminiscent of that 2003 playoff game against the Peyton Manning-led Colts. We're just going to go back and forth, except for they were punting instead of scoring. So, I would have taken the scoring every possession instead of the punting. It was the Colquitt Bowl for sure.
Oh yeah, and that's what happens. Usually we do a really good job at maintaining that field position and playing that game a little bit, and Denver just does that so well too that it was kind of a draw on that. Usually we kind of have that advantage on people, and I think they do that really well.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it was but that's division games that's why division games are cool, because we get them again in 2 weeks and we can really see. A friend of mine told me he's not a Bronco fan, he's a Manning fan, which drives me bonkers. He's actually a Pittsburgh Steeler fan, but he's got nothing to cheer about in that arena this year, so he's kind of going for the Broncos because Peyton's on that team. But he told me, I told him the Chiefs were the best team in the NFL, but obviously prior to the Bronco game, and he says, well, I'll believe that when they beat Denver twice. And I'm like, you know what? They don't have to beat Denver twice. They only have to beat Denver once, because Denver's already lost a game. So if everything else remains the same and they beat Denver one more time, then they are the best team, well, at least in the AFC. So I guess we'll find out. It's coming. But as we talk about Alex Smith, and again, like I said, a lot of the backlash this week in the wake of this loss, I don't want to say a lot, from the fans and stuff that I've read, a lot of it is being directed towards Alex Smith and really pointing out his inadequacies as quarterback. So you weren't a member of the show the last time we played this game, but Andrew and I have done this once before, and so for the audience at home, and they can kind of play along as you guys listen along to A Radio here, we're going to play a little game that I like to call Would You Rather, and it's the Kansas City Chiefs quarterback edition, where basically I'm just going to go down a list of fellow AFC and NFC teams and take their quarterback and ask you, Chris, would you rather have Alex Smith or this quarterback? So we're going to start in the great AFC North with the division-leading Cincinnati Bengals. Would you rather have Alex Smith or would you rather have Andy Dalton as the quarterback of the Chiefs?
I'll take Andy Dalton 3 weeks ago. No, I'll take the 6 touchdown throwing Andy Dalton. My best friend for, second grade, we grew up together as a hardcore Bengals fan. So we still are super tight and watch football all the time together. And he's as diehard Bengals fan as I am a Chiefs fan. And so I follow the Bengals really closely. And Andy Dalton's a talented kid. But I think there's a little bit too much expectation on him. I think for what we do, I think Alex Smith probably is a better choice. I think that, I think maybe in the long run, Dalton might have been a better choice, just because I don't know Alex Smith's durability is a little bit older, and I think Dalton really is going to come around and calm down some of those nerves and work with the really talented team they have there. But you got to look, he's working. If you put him in our offense, he doesn't have that kind of talent wide receiver-wise that we, over here in Kansas City, our wide receivers are a little bit less talented than what they have over there. So, I think I would keep Alex Smith on that one.
Okay. I'm going to agree with you on that one. I think Andy Dalton is a good kid in that system. I think that he's got that rapport and that friendship with A.J. Green in Cincinnati. Hasn't looked all that great here the last, the last couple of weeks. But of course, they won this past weekend. But they're 3-2 in their last 5 games. So, but they're holding on to that division pretty well.
But Dalton's pretty lucky he didn't get benched in that game because he was playing some awful first half football.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he's not. He's. I think he's living inside his own head a little bit too much. He's Matt Schaubing it. So.
It's that purity ring.
I don't even know what that means, but I think it's funny.
He has a purity ring. He refuses to take it off during football, and it's something about his wife and not having sex till they're married. And I don't know.
Okay, gotcha. Well, yeah, he's a Cincinnati Bengal, so we'll leave it at that. Moving to the AFC East. The 2 quarterbacks drafted highest in the draft this year, of course, E.J. Manuel going in the first round of the Buffalo Bills, and then the famed Geno Smith to the New York Jets. So would you rather have Smith, Manuel, or Geno Smith as the quarterback for the Chiefs?
Well, I haven't got to see enough of A.J. Manuel yet. He's been kind of hurt, and he's shown some flashes of brilliance. I've watched some of his games, and I thought he's looked really good, but I know what Alex Smith can do, and I know what he doesn't do, more importantly, it's called turn the ball over. So that alone makes me want to take Smith over someone like Geno Smith, Alex over Geno, just because, I did a lot of scouting when he was at West Virginia, and, I don't know what happened. He was really, his junior year, he didn't throw a whole interception all the way till I think the very second to last football game in college, and then didn't have as good a senior year, and then is coming here to the NFL and kind of been pretty careless with the ball too. And in order for the Chiefs to win, I think part of our game plan is the fact that we're not turning the ball over and capitalizing on other people's mistakes instead of creating those mistakes ourselves. So I got Alex Smith instead of both of those guys.
Yeah, I think E.J. Manuel has the chops to really be a good quarterback, but when you're missing games your rookie season due to injuries, that's not a good way to set yourself up. And some of that obviously is beyond his control, but that's just that's kind of where it is. I mean, I think E.J. Manuel has got that what I like to call the clutch gene. I've seen it in some of the games that last-second touchdown that they scored against the Panthers early in the season to win the game with no time left on the clock. I mean, you're not talking about a last-second field goal. You're talking about a quarterback, putting the team on his back, driving down the field and throwing a touchdown pass in the back corner of the end zone. That stuff gives me goosebumps, man. I mean, that's Alex Smith in 2011, throwing a touchdown to beat the Saints in the playoffs. That's that clutch gene, and I think that, like I said, I think that he could be a good quarterback. And Alex Smith faced a lot of those same injury concerns early on in his career. Then you go over to Geno Smith, and my dislike of Geno Smith is not a secret in Arrowhead Addict or anywhere else. I don't think that he is that good. I didn't think he was a first-round talent, and I still don't. Has he won some games in New York? Absolutely, he has. He's pulled some out. And I give the kid props. But if you look at the Jets and look at where they are, the Jets have not won more than one game before losing a game. They haven't won 2 games in a row all season. They've won a game, lost a game, won a game, lost a game. So now they're coming off a loss last week, and coming into this week. So I think Geno's got a lot to learn, and in regards to turnovers, like you alluded to, Chris, where Alex Smith is not turning the ball over, you're talking 4 interceptions on the whole season, and we are going into the Chiefs' 11th game of the season. That's pretty damn good. And Geno's got 14, 15, I think, something like that. So, I got to go with Alex Smith. Moving to the NFC and looking at some of the quarterbacks over there, where there tend to be a bit more elite quarterbacks. If you look at the likes of Drew Brees, you look at the likes of Matthew Stafford, a big-time passer there. Tony Romo, despite your feelings on him. Of course, you got the other Manning brother in New York. But one that I'd like your take on here, and this is one that I had asked Andrew about months ago when we played this game. The guy that stole Smith's job in San Francisco, Colin Kaepernick. Would you rather have him on this team, or are you good with Alex Smith?
Yeah, and I listened to that podcast you guys did with this and kind of heard, you guys kind of went a couple rounds back and forth over Kaepernick and Alex Smith, and I like watching Kaepernick. I think he's entertaining quarterback, and I think he has some skill sets that are going to make for a good football team. And what they have going over there with the 49ers, I think the 49ers were very unwise for letting Alex Smith go. I think they would have been smart to have used Alex Smith's veteran abilities to kind of tamper down Kaepernick a little bit, and if Kaepernick's going to play and then get injured, and because he's not running the ball as much now, and if he gets injured, then they kind of have a couple different streets to go down there. But I think for what we do, I don't think Kaepernick really fits our offense. I think we'd have really similar offensive stats with him. I think Alex Smith really, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I would bet off the top of my head Alex Smith probably has just as many rushing yards as Kaepernick, no?
This season, he's got more.
I would assume so.
Across the board,
who would have thought that?
Well, and you're right. Last season, who would have thought that? But across the board, Alex Smith has better stats this year than Colin Kaepernick does. Across the board, you're talking, touchdowns and yardage, percentage, completion, everything. So, does it have to do? I made the comment earlier to one, and this is kind of stemming from one of our commenters on Arrowhead Addict, who loves to dog on Alex Smith. So shout out to Micah Stevenson, who's hopefully listening to the podcast. I would like to think Micah listens. And he does. Micah's got some valid points. So I'm not dogging Micah in his opinion at all. The guy's got some valid points. That Alex Smith has his flaws, for certain. And some of those, kind of were evident the other night, and have been evident throughout the season. But to say that a guy like Colin Kaepernick, who Smith takes a 49ers team 2/3 of the way through the season last year, gets hurt, Kaepernick comes in, takes him the rest of the way, brings him through the playoffs to the Super Bowl, and then they lose. To say that guy would be better in Kansas City, I just don't. I'm not buying it. So I'm taking Smith, and I think that Jim Harbaugh would probably give his left testicle right now to have Alex Smith back in San Francisco. I really do, because I don't think that I don't think Kaepernick's getting it done. They've lost 4 games this year, and they've played. They've won. What are they? 6-4.
Yep.
So they only lost 3 all last season, I think, or 4 all last season. So. I don't know. Like I said, I think that I think that we being the Chiefs, I think definitely got the better quarterback out of that deal. So last one I'm going to throw at you here, the guy that's kind of made an emergence in the city of brotherly love, Nick Foles, coming in and taking that job away from Mike Vick and his injury, walking hamstring prone status. What do you think of Foles? Would you rather have Foles right now or Smith?
I'll tell you what. I, in 2 different of my fantasy leagues, I played 3 different ones, have Foles as my quarterback in 2 of those leagues, and he's been my saving grace. So I'm kind of owing to that guy this year, because I'm sitting in the playoff spots for both those fantasy teams, trying to make me some money. So I kind of owe it to Foles a little bit. I've been impressed with him. I don't know what happened to him that game like 4 weeks ago when he couldn't complete a single pass, but every game besides that, he's looked absolutely fantastic. And it's hard to say, I don't know enough about him as a quarterback to know if it's, Chip Kelly's implementation of that offense that he fits in way better than Vic, or if it's a skill set that he has more so than Vic, but they're sure getting it done over there. If I had to make a snap decision and it was my choice going forward with either Alex Smith or Nick Foles right now, I would have to take Alex Smith, just because I think I know Alex Smith. I know what he can and can't do, and Foles, as impressive as he's been, I've been very impressed with the kid, but I'm not sure exactly, all his fundamentals are there like Alex Smith has.
Yeah, Foles has definitely been impressive. I think right now he's sitting at 16 touchdowns and 0 interceptions after coming and taking that starting job. Only other quarterback to go 16-0 touchdown interception this season is Peyton Manning. But I think you're right. I don't think we've seen enough of Foles. Early in the preseason, early in the offseason, before the preseason, before Smith, the trade for Smith was done, there was a lot of rumors that maybe with Andy Reid coming to Kansas City, he was going to try to bring Nick Foles with him. He drafted Foles, and kind of a what if, kind of scenario had that happen. Where would they be sitting at? But as it stands right now, I like Smith. I think that he's the right quarterback, and I've said this before. A couple of us have said this before. Alex Smith is definitely the right quarterback for this Kansas City Chiefs team. So as we kind of move through that and move past that, and I think that you and I are both kind of in agreement on that point, and we kind of take this final look at the Bronco game, not just the Bronco game, but kind of the last couple weeks in regards to defense. One of the things that have been missing from this defense is the pass rush. This team starts out, and they are, the Sack City Chiefs. They're on pace to break the single season sack record for a team set by the '85 Chicago Bears, and that's all anybody's talking about is how are you going to stop Houston and Hawley and Poe and Johnson and Jordan. And the Chiefs have sacked the quarterback one time in the last 3 games. So what are you thinking on that, Chris? I mean, what's going on with the defense?
It's interesting, you know. I mean, it's with someone like Peyton Manning, I get it a little bit. You know, Peyton Manning is so impressive. The most impressive thing that guy does is get rid of the ball. He is so phenomenal. You know, he like holds the ball for like 0.2 seconds, and he's putting it down the field to a receiver, and so it's really hard to get to him. And no one sacks him. If you look across all the different games, no one has success putting too much pressure on him. And that's just because he gets rid of the ball. Some of the other quarterbacks that we've not had success against is a little bit more eluding to me. I'm a little more concerned as to why we can't get some of the pressure as of lately. And I would like to know, I'd like to be inside the locker room a little bit more to know if it's a change of game plan a little bit, if we've told to ease off a little bit. I'm too impressed with both those guys to believe that they have just not got sacks. I think there has to be some sort of game implementation that has kind of changed our maybe aggressiveness stance or something along those lines, because we really haven't played any super impressive offensive lines. Like, I'm kind of interested. I mean, what's your thoughts on it?
Well, I'm along the lines with you. I'm almost afraid. This is a ever evolving organism in the NFL, and teams are constantly trying to figure out what's working, what's not, and what's not working against other teams. So, my fear is that some of these offensive coordinators and offensive line coaches have figured out kind of what Sutton's doing, the defensive coordinator, and they're figuring out ways to stop it. Now, going back to what you said about Manning and his quick release, yeah, obviously Manning's got one of the quickest releases in professional football, but the San Diego Chargers sacked him 3 or 4 times, the week before they played the Chiefs. So that defense is nowhere near what the Chiefs defense is capable of. So that's my, now.
Well,
is it,
I was just going to say the difference between that is, they're actually blitzing. The Chiefs don't really put on like true blitz packages. They're kind of sending the guys every down because in the past that's worked.
Yeah, I mean, and you're right, and Sutton definitely disguises his blitz packages, and I think that some of it is attributed to, you can only have so many guys rushing the passer if you've got everybody else in coverage, and when you're playing Peyton Manning, you definitely want to have guys in coverage or he's going to shred you. But, going back to what you said, the week before the bye, the Chiefs play the Buffalo Bills, and a third-string, undrafted rookie free agent quarterback in Toole, the Chiefs never hit him either. Him and Toole and Manning both wore white jerseys to the game, and when they finished, there were no grass stains, and that's not okay.
I couldn't believe we couldn't get our hands on Toole. I thought it was going to be a slaughter.
As I did too, and a lot of the speculation there is, well, there's no tape on him, and so Sutton was kind of laying back to see, and I can buy that, but how much tape is there on Manning? I mean, last I checked, there's like 14, 15 years worth. So
that's not enough, Jason.
Yeah, for Manning, well, maybe it's not enough. I don't know, but the bottom line is that it's a little concerning. It's a little concerning that they come out hot, and now they've really laid off. I mean, start coming into next week, I think that they're damn near tied with the Buffalo Bills for most sacks in the league, and we were ahead by 10 or more at one point. So, yeah, it's a little concerning. I hope that they can get the pressure, and this is kind of a perfect segue as we look ahead to the San Diego Chargers, who are coming to Kansas City this weekend on Sunday, a noon Central, 10 Pacific start. Phillip Rivers coming to town, and you and I have talked about it many times. It's all about which San Diego team is going to show up is going to kind of determine whether the Chiefs are going to look really good in this game or are going to struggle in this game. Yeah,
I mean, it's tricky. The the Chargers for the longest time, I mean, have just seemed like they're a very streaky team. Even in past years, they'd come in and not do good at all and then win out the entire rest of the season. Or do really well and then all of a sudden there's like a quick turnaround and then they can't win a game for the life of them no matter who they play. So it's weird to have such a streaky team. Luckily right now we kind of have them on that down streak, or so it seems. They've come in and lost 3 straight. The overtime loss in Washington, losing to Denver, and then, losing to Miami, who themselves have seemed shambled. Miami hasn't looked good and have really kind of been all over the place. And so I'm kind of hoping maybe we're kind of getting some of that down streak on them. And, Phillip Rivers has been known to kind of lose his cool in the past. And if we can get some pressure on him and continue to get them to kind of play bad, hopefully we'll see some Crimea Rivers on Sunday.
I was going to say, man, you said Phillip Rivers loses his cool. It's more like Phillip Rivers breaks down in tears on the sidelines. I mean, let's be honest. The guy's not called Crimea Rivers for nothing. So, but I promise you, my wife is fully aware it will not be a house divided this Sunday. She is no longer a San Diego Chargers fan. Although for Christmas last year I did buy her a little Phillip Rivers action figure to put on her desk at work that I don't know what she did with it, but
I'm apparently not allowed to make any comment.
No comments from you. She put the kibosh on that. So
yeah.
No, it's going to be interesting. Rivers obviously he's a slinger. I mean, he's throwing the ball and he's throwing the ball well. He's actually rated very high. He's one of the highest rated quarterbacks this season in the NFL. So
4th in receiving.
Yeah, so he can throw the ball. A guy that I work with out here, he's kind of high on Rivers. He's actually a Dolphins fan, but not a whole lot to cheer about there this year. So he's been giving me a lot of crap about the Chargers and Phillip Rivers, and I told him I would not take Phillip Rivers. And there's another would you rather, Phillip Rivers or Alex Smith, and not know, but hell no would I want Phillip Rivers on this football team. Even though he can throw the ball. I mean, Phillip Rivers can throw the ball. There's no doubt about that. And a lot of people kind of thought that Rivers was going to have his reemergence this year. This was kind of his do or die year, and I still think that. New head coach, new leadership there in San Diego. I don't know. I don't see the Chargers coming in and beating the Chiefs. I've said it before. I'll say it again. After having experienced a home game this season in Arrowhead with its resurgence and the Chiefs are doing well, I don't see the Chiefs losing at home, man. I think Kansas City takes this one handily. I'm going to go 28-14 Chiefs.
Yeah, I'm pretty in a similar spot. I think this is going to be the week that our pass rush kind of takes back on a little bit of form. I think we're going to try and get some rush on in them. They have a high-end passing game. Like we were saying earlier, he's 4th in receiving yards in the league. But they're doing that and they're still losing games. So, if they're the last place in our division. So, and they lost to Oakland, and if you can lose to Oakland, you're going to have a hard time losing to us, or winning us. So, I probably see it. I think they're probably at least going to score, 14, 17 points. I'll say 17-24. I think the Chiefs have a habit of keeping games closer than they should be, but.
Well, let's hope that the Chiefs learn their lesson about that this past Sunday, and that they use kind of San Diego as a, as a slingshot back into Arrowhead, next Sunday for Denver. But I mean, I don't think that that's out of the realm of possibility. I think that our defense goes back to their 17-point spread. Denver's the first team all season that scored more than 17, and they only scored 10 more than that. So. I mean, I think that's within the realm, but I'm sticking by it. I think it's a good 2-touchdown game against San Diego. So, of course, the other game.
If you look at San Diego's, scoring, like as much as passing as they've been, they haven't been putting up a lot of points. I mean, their losses, they put up 16 points, 20 points, 24 points. Their wins, even, they're only putting up 24 points, 19 points. I mean, there's not like this huge league of huge deficit games that they're blowing people out by with that kind of high passing yardage. So
Yeah.
it's not like Denver, I mean, and their defense has been pretty mediocre. Once again, it's kind of spotty like their offense, but they're rated 16th overall against the run. And, we talked about last week, we're really waiting for one of these weeks for Jamal Charles to really do that breakout run, have that breakout game. 2 touchdowns, 160 yards, rushing, type of game that he's known to have at least a few times every year. And that's even when we're a bad football team, So I'm assuming we get a couple of those games here, and have him hold true to some of his stats here at the end of the season. It'd sure be nice to have it one next week.
Yeah, it would be. And as we move from this Chargers game this Sunday to next Sunday, and you and I were just talking about this, if my math is correct, if the Chiefs win this weekend and next weekend, a win against the Broncos would take the Chiefs to 11 wins on the season, and they would actually clinch a playoff spot already in Week 13. So, I mean, that's how close they are, to already having clinched the playoffs, which I said to you, it's kind of crazy that we're saying Chiefs and playoffs in Week 13 and not talking about the fact that they're already eliminated. So, I mean, we're talking about they're going to be the first team to clinch a playoff spot. So,
yeah, it's exciting for me when this time of year rolls around, starts to get cold outside. I'm, talking about playoff hopes rather than my drinking problem. So, it's really big differential, going into different things. So, we're hoping the Chiefs keep on it, and, our schedule definitely allows for some wins here at the end, and hopefully we can cinch that up. We'd love to have some home field advantage and some bye weeks and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, it would be nice. Well, there's another game that's of great importance that's going on in the AFC this Sunday, and that is the Denver Broncos, who obviously just beat the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football, get a performance on Sunday Night Football against the New England Patriots. And of note of this game, besides the fact that it's like Manning versus Brady Part 14 or something like that, is the fact that the Patriots lost this last weekend on a very controversial call with the last seconds. Did you see that Monday night game by chance?
Yeah, I'm still blown away by it. I think that was a horrible call. I was really kind of, I mean,
Tom Brady's mother agrees with you, by the way. I don't know if you saw that, but that was all Tom Brady had to say about it in the news presser was, my mom thought it was a bad call, moving on. So
yeah, it was just about as good as Bill Belichick's post conference.
He was inactive.
Oh no,
he was inactive.
Bill Belichick, I swear, every time something happens with the Patriots, I swear he's just gonna pull out a gun and just start shooting everybody. I've never seen that much pent-up aggression in a human being ever in my life.
He's pretty hardcore. But what I was getting at was, with the Patriots losing, and especially in such controversial fashion, Tom Brady's not going to lose 2 games in a row. The New England Patriots are not going to lose 2 games in a row. Now they're facing the Broncos, who many are still saying are the best team in the NFL. So, but one of the reasons that I was kind of rooting for Carolina on Monday night is I wanted the Broncos to go up against Angry Tom. I didn't want him to play, hey, we just won a good game, Tom Brady. I want him to go up against Angry Tom Brady. He got screwed out of a touchdown. They got screwed out of a win. So
yeah, that old Patriots that are up by 40 points and still throwing the ball down the field.
Yeah, absolutely. Still airing it out, trying to hit 30, 40-yard passes down the field.
You know who that is now is old Chip Kelly and the Philly.
Yeah.
They're up by 30 and they're still throwing the long bomb.
So obviously that this game is key for the AFC outlook as a whole, as a conference, but also for the Chiefs, obviously, because Chiefs beat San Diego on Sunday. The Broncos lose to New England. We're right back to where we started with Denver coming into Arrowhead with the Chiefs up by a game. So what are your thoughts, or just a real quick prediction as we kind of come to the end of the show here on this, or the end of this piece anyway? What are your thoughts on that Denver New England game? You think Denver's got it? You think New England's got it? What are you thinking?
I'm with you. Them getting kind of that game stolen from them sure isn't going to give the Patriots any ease and effort of going to that game, with without aggression on their hands. So, as they say about Tom Brady, you won't like him when he's angry. So, hopefully he's big and green, and they send that defense, diving into Peyton Manning all day, and then see if we can get him a little bit under pressure and serve him up to us for sloppy seconds.
I'll take it. I'll take it in a heartbeat. So, yeah, definitely huge game next Sunday night on Sunday Night Football. So it'll be another full weekend of NFL action. Obviously, the Chiefs have the early game at you get a noon Central Time start time, and then the Patriots and the Broncos facing off, and it's in New England too. They're not playing at Mile High, so you got that one on the Sunday Night Football game. With the Chiefs' loss, obviously, taking a look at the ESPN Power Rankings, the Chiefs lose. So the folks over at ESPN, they couldn't justify keeping the Chiefs in that number 1 slot any longer, and they dropped them to 3. That actually surprised me. Not that they dropped them to 3, that they didn't drop them lower. I actually thought that they may have dropped them lower, saying, well, they've been exposed, they're frauds, they're not as good, they're not what we thought they were. We're going to make them number 5 or 6. But it's Denver, Seattle, Kansas City, which I don't think is unfair at all. I think that's a pretty fair assessment of the teams.
Yeah, and I mean I would even venture to say that I think Seattle has proven that they can win on the road enough to probably even be number 1 up there. I think you'll probably see that this week after Denver plays New England, whether they win or lose. Seahawks being on a bye, I think they're going to come off the bye and come back with the number 1 power ranking.
It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, power rankings are just that, but no, I mean, I thought, as looking down those power rankings, that that was pretty legit. I was pleasantly surprised on that. So, but like you said, yeah, if the Broncos, the Broncos come out and they lose this game, and then, obviously the Chiefs win, then the Chiefs probably slide back into that number 2 slot. I don't know how they keep them out, and Seattle moves up into the top slot. And I think that's I think that's pretty fair. So as we kind of come to an end on this another episode of AA Radio, Chris, it's always good talking to you about Chiefs. It's definitely an hour of my week that I look forward to. What are your final thoughts going into this Sunday? Another divisional matchup. We've got divisional matchup after divisional matchup here over these last second half of the schedule. What are your final thoughts on kind of where the Chiefs stand? Real quickly, what do they need to do to get a victory back home at Arrowhead this Sunday?
I love this time of year. I love getting into these last handful of games, and I'll tell you what, the best thing the NFL League has done for football in a long time is move these divisional games to the end of the season. It sure really rallies up the playoff conferences and, trying to figure out who's going to take what positions. And I'll tell you what, us doing Denver, San Diego, Denver in 3 games is a pretty nasty, little spread for us, and is going to pull a lot of different position battles for what's kind of going on in our league. So I think we need to come in and we need to get our defense back on track. We need to go in and solidify that we're the pass rush to be afraid of, that we're going to make you get rid of the ball and make you throw the ball to beat us and beat our guys one-on-one. And if we can go that and implement our game plan like we've been doing all season, I don't think people beat us at that, especially teams who have a history of crumbling under pressure like San Diego. I think that if we can implement some of our game plan on these last set of teams, I think we're going to be tough to beat. So I'm thinking we go in there, do those things. Like I said, hopefully get Jamal Charles motor chugging again after the kind of slow start last week, and take this one out.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think that the name of the game for Sunday is going to be execution. The Chiefs are going to have to execute on both sides of the ball and on the special teams as well. But, to reiterate and say it again, the Chiefs, I don't think, will lose this season at Arrowhead. I think that they go undefeated at home. I think that home field advantage, the loudest crowd in the world in an outdoor stadium with the world record and the slot in Guinness Book of World Records to prove it. I just don't see it happening. You know, I think Phillip Rivers can cry all he wants to. I think that San Diego's going to go home with a loss this Sunday. So, Addicts, it's fun always talking to you. We definitely appreciate you all hanging out with us for an hour, taking an hour out of your day to listen to Chris and I and whoever else comes along for the ride every week here on AA Radio. Just want to say, make sure that you tune in next week. We've got a special guest next week that I'd like to let you all know. We're going to have the assistant editor from Predominantly Orange, and if you're not familiar with that site, predominantlyorange.com is the Denver Broncos fan-sided site, the counterpart to Arrowhead Addict, if you will. We're going to have the assistant editor of that site on as a special guest to talk about the upcoming Broncos-Chiefs Part 2. So he'll be on with us for that segment.
And a live boxing match, right?
Yeah, well, I don't know. He's in Denver. I'm in Texas. You're in Washington. So it might be we'll throw insults at each other. I guess maybe I don't know. It could get a little heated. I don't know. I promised him when I shot him the email that it would remain civil, but it might be a promise I can't keep. So definitely looking forward to that. It'll be kind of our first guest that we've had on the show this season. You know, with really being the first season of doing AA Radio. So definitely looking forward to that. Patrick Allen, for those of you at Arrowhead Addict and out there listening that know Patrick, our former editor, and now the VP of content for all of Fansided, definitely has contacted me with interest about coming on the show. So definitely would love to get him on. So we're always looking for new ways and new ideas for this show to kind of keep it fresh for you every week. So we're not just kind of rehashing the same stuff, but doing our best. So if you're listening to this show on iTunes, make sure that you're giving us a 5-star rating. That will definitely help with the search engine and get more listeners. We're doing really well in the ratings, but we can always do better, and we definitely want to make sure that this show gets out to as many folks as possible. So once again, for Chris Kilduff up in the Pacific Northwest where it's nice and cold, and I'm Jason Seibel down here in San Antonio, Texas. Thank you, addicts, for coming along with us on AA Radio. Keep it red, keep it yellow. Keep it Chiefs.
Cut me out with probably bleed. Red, yellow, red, yellow, red, yellow, red, yellow. See, y'all just Indians and we the Chiefs. Red, yellow,